This is chapter 15, podcast number 2. This is story number 2, religious war number 2, also known as the Dutch Revolt. There are 3 main religious wars at the same time after the Reformation: the French, the Dutch, and the 30 Years' War. And so these are the 3 stories in order, and this is the second story, called the Dutch Revolt or the Dutch War of Independence. And this, to me, is the most interesting of all 3 stories because it involves so many countries. It became an international war between Spain, the Dutch, also known as the Netherlands, and England, and you can even throw Scotland in there a little bit. They get mixed up in the fight. To me, this is the best of the stories. It's also the most complicated, so we have to kind of pay close attention to it. It's happening at the same time as the French Religious Wars, so just know that. These are simultaneous. This is the 1560s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So the late 16th century, late 1500s. That's the time frame of these, at least these first 2 religious war stories. Okay, so the first page of notes here is all about the background of the Netherlands, a country we haven't really talked about a whole lot yet. This is where the Northern Renaissance had taken place, just as background. And now the Reformation comes into play as well. So this is the modern-day Netherlands. And as you'll see, most of the time in history it's been ruled by foreign nations, and at this point it's ruled by Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor. And because he inherited that as one of those many territories that came from his grandparents. And so this is the story of the Dutch becoming Protestant in the Reformation. They're ruled by Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, and he's also part of the Habsburg dynasty, which is Spanish. And it's the story of how there's a religious war that turns into a civil war, a war of independence. And the end of the story, and it's the main point, is that not only do the Dutch become Protestant, but they break away from Spain and they become an independent nation for the first time, and they stay that way until the present. It's like the American War of Independence, 1776. It's the same kind of thing. We're fighting against a foreign power to achieve independence from a nation that we don't want to be ruled by anymore. So it's a great story. Lots of patriotism, lots of good battles. So here we go. So the story starts, though, as the Reformation entering the Netherlands, and it becomes a religious conflict. So what 3 factors become mixed up in the religious crisis of the Netherlands in this century? The stability of England, the influence of the Catholic Church, and the prestige of Spain. These are the 3 international factors. Everybody's involved in this second religious war. So then we move into some background of the Netherlands. What was this place all about before we get into the actual story of the war? The Netherlands, and here's a map of what it kind of looks like. So this is called the Low Countries as well. That's a synonym. It actually includes modern-day Netherlands and Belgium, and these 2 countries will be, these regions will become prominent in the story today. There's many, many provinces, 17 different provinces, almost like little states within a nation. So the Netherlands was the pivot around which European money, diplomacy, and war revolved. This place is a rich place. This is the center of everything in Northern Europe. Maybe like Florence was the center of everything in Southern Europe. The Dutch, also known as the Netherlands, also known as Holland. These are all synonyms that people use for the Netherlands. This is like the place to be. This is like New York, in this century, okay? And Charles V, our buddy, inherited this territory from his grandfather, all right? So this is part of the inheritance that he received, I believe, from Maximilian, his grandfather. And the main city, actually, at this time was not Amsterdam, but Antwerp. So can you find Antwerp? It's right next to number 3 on your map here. This is a port city. This is a center of trade and finance. And this was 2,500 ships could dock in the port of Antwerp at any one time. And here it is. Here's the port of Antwerp. This is the building known as the Bourse, which was the exchange, the market place where the goods came off the ships and the people went in and worked deals and negotiated for cargo, and then they would unload the ships right here. This was like the business hub of Antwerp, known as the Bourse. And 5,000 people a day worked in this building as traders. All right, so the Dutch are known for being traders. They don't make a whole lot of things, but this is the center of commerce, and so goods come from all over the world to Antwerp and later Amsterdam. And these guys are like the middlemen. Okay, they're like the brokers. They broker the deals. So these are extremely rich provinces. The prosperity of these are extremely high. This is one of the richest places in Europe at the time. It's the center of banking and trade. Got it? And this is all the background. So what's the politics of these places like? The political structure. Historically, these 17 provinces were fairly self-governing. They were kind of on their own, let to do their own thing. They controlled their own taxes. There was strong local government and not really any national government. So each of these 17 places had sort of their own character, all right? And then once Charles V inherited it, he's kind of the only person that brings any form of unity to these 17 provinces because now they're part of his empire. But that's not going to last very long. They have what's called a States General, which is a parliament. That's the name of their parliament. And it exists, but it's really weak. And all important decisions are made, as I said again, at the local level. So it's like it's a confederation. That's the right word. Confederation, confederacy, where the states are strong, but the national government is weak. So we have in America the opposite. We have federalism, where the national government is strong and our states are relatively weak and our cities are even weaker, and we have a top-down government. But in the Dutch here in the 16th century, we're bottom up. Local government strong, national government is weak. All right, so... Oh, and here's more pictures of the Netherlands. This is a great country today. This is Amsterdam, which will become the most important city in the next century. Lots of water, lots of canals, lots of cool architecture, the ability to live right on a canal and run a shop or a business from your house and get those products out onto barges and float them out. Here's the city of Amsterdam today. There's a series of concentric canals that were built through the city. And you can, like I said, you can follow along, or you could live on one of those canals and get your stuff out to the main river, which goes right out into the North Sea. So it's a place that's really well positioned for trade and business. It's really, geography helps them out. And it's called the Low Countries because these places would be below sea level if they didn't have special devices to keep the water out. And those are going to play into our story here in a few minutes. So that's why it's called the Low Countries. All right. So the Reformation entered the Netherlands at the same time it did everywhere else, and primarily Calvinism. That's the brand of Protestant faith that comes into the Netherlands, was Calvinism. So what two factors provoke religious reform? Well, corruption in the Catholic Church and almost the same critical spirit of the Renaissance. All right, people are questioning accepted ideas and being willing to bring in something new. So that's much like the Renaissance. And remember Erasmus? He was up here. He was from this area in the Northern Renaissance. So that same, he was calling for reform in the church long before Luther did. So there's a history here. The place was ready for change. All right, so Charles V, who's here on his horse, remember he has the big chin and a big spear. He sort of let them do what they wanted. He sort of said, I want you to stop what you're doing with the Protestant Reformation up here in the Netherlands. But like everywhere else, he couldn't do anything about it. He had too much on his plate. Remember, that's why he couldn't stop Martin Luther in Germany, and he can't stop these guys up here. Religious ideas are circulating freely in a cosmopolitan atmosphere. The Dutch are like New York. New ideas are welcome, and they're rich. And there's just lots of very dynamic cultures going on here. All right, let's go on. Let's move on to Charles V. So he's an old man. He's got the jaw that's too big, and he can barely speak by the end of his life because he's so deformed in his face. And so he called it quits. He abdicated when he was an old man, and he had too much going on, too many wars, too many revolts, too much territory. And he split the empire between his brother and his son. And his brother is Ferdinand, and he got the eastern part of the empire. The Austrian part, the Holy Roman Empire part. This is like Germany, Central Europe. And then Philip II is his son. And that guy gets the good stuff. He gets Spain, the Netherlands, all of the Italian states that were under these guys' control, which is down like in Naples. and he gets all the New World territories, all of North America, South America that the Spanish had conquered so far. That goes to Philip. So he got the better half of the deal. So Philip's going to be our main story. Here he is, our main man for the day here, okay? He's the main character. So the people of the Netherlands had liked Charles V, but they really hate his son Philip. So why? So Charles V was born in Flanders. He was born up there, and then he had traveled all over Europe. He was an international figure, controlled a huge empire, and he spoke their language. He spoke Flemish and a little Dutch. These are the languages of the Netherlands, and he was kind to them. He didn't repress them very much, but they hate Philip. Okay, Philip was born in Madrid. He's a Spaniard, so he's an enemy. So when he inherits this territory, now you're ruled by someone foreign who doesn't speak your language, and he's not tolerant at all. All right, so it's a shift. This guy helps provoke the reform. So summary, the Netherlands was rich. They liked their independence, but they're now run by Spain, and there's a sizable Protestant or Calvinist minority. So here comes the revolt of the Netherlands. 1566 to 1587, this is the 20-year period where the revolt of the Netherlands is in full swing. All right, so it's the spread of Calvinism that causes the trouble here. Calvinism is the form of Protestant faith that comes into the Netherlands. They're a strong, militant minority. Let's go back to our map here. Strong, militant minority. Remember, they're willing to fight just like they were in Switzerland. They're not tolerant to their enemies. They're a serious, hardworking people. They like making money. Remember, they got that Protestant work ethic, and they are ready to go here up in the Netherlands when they get there. Calvinism appeals to the merchants and the middle class. Remember this. Hard work well done is pleasing to God. Strict morality, intellectual seriousness, business seriousness. That these guys, these middle-class, rich Dutch traders are ripe to convert to Calvinism. It fits with their lifestyle. Got it? So there's a big appeal here. So Philip has this huge empire too, as I just talked to you about. So he can't handle it all. So he's got to give a little bit over to his sister as the regent to temporarily rule it. This is Margaret of Parma. And she's even worse than Philip. She's going to do bad things to the people of the Netherlands. She has 3 goals: wipe out the Protestants, introduce the Inquisition, and raise taxes. By the way, Philip II and Margaret of Parma are some of the strictest Catholics you're ever going to find. Look at Philip. He's holding prayer beads. These are Catholic prayer beads, and in his portrait, he wants you to know that he's so Catholic and so religious that he has to be painted with his prayer beads. Got it? And his sister the same. Very, very serious. All right, these are all the children. By the way, she's also a child of Charles V. She's one of his other daughters. All right, these guys aren't messing around. So that's their goals. The Inquisition, wipe out the Protestants, and raise taxes. Okay, raise taxes. So no one's going to like you when you want to do those 3 things. So these new Calvinists, these new converts, okay, poor, fanatical Calvinists, these aren't middle-class people, though. These are like some of the poorer ones. They destroyed churches, Catholic churches, in response to Margaret of Parma. And the church that they're going to take out is in the heart of Antwerp. And it's the practice of destroying churches, remember, is called iconoclasm. When you take down the symbols of other people's religion, it's iconoclasm. And they targeted, again, images, symbols, statues. This is the main church that they attacked, the Cathedral of Notre Dame at Antwerp. This is the richest, most beautiful cathedral, Catholic cathedral in the Netherlands, right in the heart of Antwerp, and they sack it. These Calvinists go in there as a protest for Margaret doing her thing, and they smash it all down, and here they are. Here's pictures of them taking down statues and, just sort of ransacking the place, all right, as an act of protest. So Margaret of Parma goes, that's no good. We're going to bring in the army to crush this little mini rebellion, and they're going to start with these famous dukes. The Spanish Duke of Alva, A-L-V-A, with his beat-down stick. He's going to come in to crush this revolt, 1568. We can't have little Calvinists, smashing things. That's not going to work. So he's going to pacify. They go, we need you to pacify this rebellion. And he interpreted that as, we need to exterminate Calvinists. This is now the theme, right? There's religious wars happening in France, and they go, yeah, we got to do the same thing. He brings 20,000 troops from Madrid up to the Netherlands to destroy this relatively minor outbreak of revolt by these Calvinists. Okay, so again, it starts off as a religious war, a religious issue, and all of a sudden now it's very political. We have troops on the way to crush these guys. And he brings with him the Council of Blood, which is his own personal inquisition, little tribunal system where he's going to put little heretics on trial and kill them. And he's going to kill 1,500 of the leaders of the rebellion in the Netherlands, these Calvinist leaders. 1,500 of them get tried and killed by his little personal council of blood. All right, so just to summarize, it starts off as a religious conflict. It's turning into a civil war between the people of the Netherlands and their overlords, the Spanish. And then very quickly it's going to become a full-fledged war of independence. Okay, and now the War of Independence, again, this is all around 1560, 1570, so it's going to get much bigger. Now the people of the Netherlands, when they see the Spanish on the shores coming to invade them, are going to rally around a political leader. Who's the man of the hour? William of Orange, Prince William of Orange, the Silent. He's the leader of the Dutch. He takes up the cause to repel the Spanish and break free of their rule. So he becomes like the father of the nation. He's the George Washington of the story. William of Orange. Orange is one of these 17 provinces, or Oranje in Dutch. So it's not the fruit, although they do equate the two. But the color is big. If you go to the Netherlands today, they love the color orange. The soccer team wears orange. So all in honor of William of Orange. And so he's the key player. So he takes this religious war and turns it into a war of independence to get rid of the Spanish forever. So once this becomes even bigger and bigger, now we've got to bring in bigger guns. So the Spanish, the Duke of Alva couldn't get the job done. Now here comes the Duke of Parma, and he's going to finish the job. He's also sent from Spain. And with him, he brings a bunch of hired hands, a bunch of German mercenaries. So the people of the Netherlands are going to hate him even more because not only it's just evident you can't get the job done with Spanish soldiers. Now you're going to hire Germans, and you're going to bring our foreigners in to try to kill us Dutch. So this is going to get bad. And he's got a beat-down stick, too. See, these guys like being painted with holding big sticks to beat down rebellions. I'm sure it means something else, but it's funny to me. I like it. All right, so the Duke of Parma brings the mercenaries, and they start laying siege to city after city after city. By the way, here's the Spanish coming on the shores of the Netherlands here. They come in these giant ships, and they start burning things down and laying siege. Laying siege means you encircle a city and cut it off, and you don't let anybody in or out. No food can come in, no trade. You besiege them, and they besieged Antwerp, and it finally fell. And this is the main city, so this draws a lot of attention because this is like New York, being taken over or something, almost like 9/11, the attack on the biggest city of the nation, and this is Antwerp. This is their big city, and they take it back. The Spanish reconquer Antwerp, and the first thing they do is they forbid the spread of Calvinism in the new territories. No more Calvinism, all right? So at this point, there's a raging civil war. There's a raging war of independence. And the Spanish have sort of reconquered part of the nation through the Duke of Parma. Let me go back to the map at the beginning of the story. This is important now. So the Spanish reconquer the 10 southern provinces. They got it? 1 through 10 here. This is future Belgium. And the Duke of Parma gets it. And the northernmost city is Antwerp. And then they take all the south. And it's now the Spanish Netherlands. But the 7 northern provinces, which is led by Holland, that's one of the provinces, they fight on. They keep the battle going against Spain. They didn't get recaptured here. They fight on under William of Orange. And they form what's called the Union of Utrecht, which says we're not going to back down. We're a union. The city of Utrecht is up there. Right up near number 11, and this is their pledge to each other, almost like their first form of government, their first constitution. It says we declare independence from Spain. This is their declaration of independence, just like we have one against England. They have theirs against Spain. This is in 1581. Got it? Write that date down. 1581. And how are these northern provinces more defensible against the Spanish, which they were? The southern part is easily conquered. The northern part, why is it that these guys can keep fighting against this powerful Spanish army? It's because they're the really low countries. They're the really below sea level stuff. And it's all about dikes. Okay? These Dutch engineers have built seawalls, levees to keep the water out. Look, that river would be flowing into that farmland if it wasn't for that dike right in the middle. And so what happens is every time the Spanish try to invade the northern provinces of the Netherlands, the Dutch flood them. They open up one of these levees or seawalls, they flood the Spanish. Yeah, it destroys some of their own farmland, but that's okay. Every time the Spanish army comes advancing across the territory, they get flooded. So this is an excellent military strategy. This is how the Dutch have always used water and their land as great advantages to them. Okay, so the religious division. The South becomes Catholic again, or stays Catholic really, because of the Spanish reconquering them. But the northern part is going to become Calvinist and stay Protestant from this point forward. So the war is still going on, but you have divisions happening politically and religiously. So the Dutch know that they can only flood these guys so many times before they wise up to it and figure out a new way to come in and conquer them. So they needed help. The northern provinces, the Dutch, okay, led by William of Orange, they gotta get some help. So they go to Queen Elizabeth of England, the Queen Elizabeth I, and they ask her for help. Why do they go to her? What do they have in common? They're all Protestant now. They've all broken away from the Catholic Church. They all kind of hate the Spanish. Queen Elizabeth's evil older sister was Bloody Mary, who was actually raised in Spain and married to Philip II for a while, too. So she doesn't like any of that. She's got bad family history here. And they both trade together a lot. They do business. The Dutch and the English are wealthy. They trade. They've always traded, going back even into the 100 Years' War. And that's why that area supported the English in the 100 Years' War. They got business relationships, okay? So Queen Elizabeth the First of England, and what a great outfit this is, and her little ermine, her little pet right there on her arm. That's a very expensive pet. She says, yes, I'll support you, the Dutch, in the war against the Spanish. Why? The wool trade, got it? They do business together. They need to make money. And when there's war, it hurts business, and the English need to trade with the Dutch. All right, so that's why we're going to help. Number 2, William of Orange was murdered, was assassinated, William the Silent, by a Spanish assassin. They had this whole plot. Look this up online, the assassination of William of Orange. These Spanish sent these assassins up there to the Netherlands, and they spied on him, and they took him out, in the middle of the war. And so now they're leaderless. The Dutch don't have a leader, so we need help. And number 3, Antwerp had collapsed and fallen apart. So the English, Queen Elizabeth gives them 20,000 troops, English troops that are going to go fight with the Dutch against the Spanish. Okay, and so she's going to provide major support. And maybe most of all, England feared that Spain might actually invade them because they seem so bent on promoting Catholicism and restoring that to everywhere in Europe. So they had their own concerns about all this. All right. Go on to the next page. So here's our man of the hour, Philip II of Spain. He's the one that's fighting the Dutch here, and his sister Margaret. He's the defender of Catholicism. Got it? That's the title he took for himself. He lives in this place called the Escorial, which is one of the biggest palaces in Europe. It's magnificent. It's Renaissance style. There's a church right in the middle. You can see there's a monastery in there, a cathedral. It's an office complex, a palace complex. The tomb, all the Spanish kings are buried here. So it's just like this is the center of power for Spain, all right? And it's this incredible structure, right outside of Madrid. A monastery, a tomb, a royal palace, it's all of it. And Philip had been everywhere in Europe, okay? Philip II, let me go back to him. He was widely traveled all over Europe. He was born in the Netherlands, but he ruled this whole western part of the empire that he got from his father. But yet he was deeply Catholic. He's one of the most deeply Catholic guys that we have. Got it? It's a repeat point. And did he support religious tolerance? No way, Jose. I don't think so. He's a strict, staunch Catholic. He's determined to crush the Netherlands, but he had bigger troubles in his camp, just like his father Charles did. The Ottoman Turks are waging war in Eastern Europe, trying to advance on that area and take territory back. There's a Muslim revolt in Granada that they're trying to come back into Spain, even though they got kicked out in the Reconquista. They're not going away yet. And so he's got to have some help. So Philip goes to Mary Stuart. This is where the story gets great. There we go. Look at this Escorial. This is a good building. Look at that beautiful architecture. Look at that. Lots of tourists walking around there. It's wonderful. All right, Mary Stuart, Queen of Scotland, who's a staunch Catholic herself. Philip and Mary, Philip of Spain and Mary, Queen of Scots, decide to plot together. And they go, we need to take out Queen Elizabeth because she's the problem. If she doesn't help the Dutch, they're not going to win. So they come up with this assassination plot against Queen Elizabeth. Mary, Queen of Scots, and Philip II are plotting. And the plot is we're going to send people to England and kill Elizabeth. And then Mary Stuart, Mary, Queen of Scots, is going to take the throne of England and reunite England and Scotland and reconvert the whole thing back to Catholics, to being Catholic, all right? So this is all this intricate plot here. And Philip gives his full support, his role here, full support to Mary, Queen of Scots. I don't know how they must have been communicating through emissaries and secret letters, and what a story. There's good movies about this too. There's a movie called Elizabeth: The Golden Age that discusses all this stuff. So this has all been done in film if you want to see movies about it. So what happens here? The plot is revealed. Elizabeth found out that Mary, Queen of Scots, was plotting against her, and she went and captured her and imprisoned Mary, Queen of Scots, and had her executed for treason in 1587. So one monarch of Europe, Elizabeth, takes out another monarch. There we go. This monarch, Elizabeth I, takes out Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots. And now that's going to really fan the flames of war because the Pope hears about this, Philip hears about this, and they go crazy. The Pope promises Philip II a huge sum of money the minute he lands troops on the shores of England as revenge for the death of Mary, Queen of Scots, okay? The Pope's like, you've killed a Catholic monarch in Europe, and Philip, go get him, go administer punishment up to the English for this whole fiasco. So that Philip's going to prepare this massive invasion of England as revenge for the death of Mary Stuart, Queen of Scots, all right? So here we go. Why would they want to do this? Well, we talked about revenge. The English also have been helping the Dutch the whole time, and they need to stop that. And he wants to restore Catholicism all over the world. All right, so this is the Philip. Let's go back. Yep. Too far. There we go. There's Philip. He's going to prepare this massive invasion of England as punishment for the death of Mary, Queen of Scots, and to stop the Dutch and the English-Dutch relationship, all this. What obstacles does he face? Well, he's getting old now. He's sick personally and getting old, and he's got the Turks, he's got all these other wars going on. So just like Charles V, his father, he's got a lot going on internationally. But he does it anyway. Carries forward with the invasion, the most famous probably naval battle, maybe top 2 or 3 in history, the Spanish Armada. Here it is. Let's go back to it. The most famous battle of this century for sure, La Felicissima Armada in the year 1588. This is Spain going up to England with a fleet of ships to try to take out the English for all kinds of reasons that we just talked about. The Spanish have 130 ships. The English have 150 ships. It's a huge battle off the coast of England. And who wins? You know it, the English. Okay, decisive turning point battle in history. The Spanish lose miserably. The English win. Only 65 ships returned to Spain from the Spanish fleet. Why do they win? There's the Spanish try what are called fire ships, almost like kamikazes. They light a ship on fire and they crash it into an English ship, and they both sink. This is like their strategy in the Spanish Armada. The weather doesn't help. There was bad weather off the coast of England, and the Spanish got caught in it. Here's Philip II in his Armada portrait. Look at that. Also with his beat-down stick, ready to go beat down England. Look at those legs and those tights. Wow. All right, there's Queen Elizabeth in her Armada portrait. Look at her hand on the globe like that. I rule the earth. Philip II's not taking over England. Look at out the window behind her. There's the Armada going down. The Spanish ships. Look at that's them coming in. And on the right is the destruction of all those Spanish ships right there. This is a portrait commemorating the English victory in the Armada. Here's the route of the Spanish Armada. Okay, they came up actually from Lisbon, which is where Spain controlled Portugal at the time. They came up, they circled around. There was a couple little skirmishes in the English Channel, and then the bulk of the battles were off the coast of Ireland. And look at all those ships that went down right there. Okay, so the English come up big. This is huge. It prevents Philip from reimposing Catholicism on Western Europe. Spain does not conquer England. Elizabeth continued to help the Dutch. A spirit of defeatism is in Spain. The Spanish, this is the end of their golden age, everybody. They had a good run until 1588. So from 1492 with Columbus and all that, and the expulsion of the Muslims and Jews, up to 1588, that nearly 100-year period was the Spanish Golden Age, and this is the beginning of the end. But it's going to enhance English nationalism and English prestige. Okay, think about this, turning point battle in history. If the Spanish come and defeat the English, this is before the people ever set sail from England for America with the Mayflower and all the English colonies. That might not have happened. If the Spanish had conquered England here in this century, we might not have had a Mayflower. We might not have had a British settlement of North America, and which, of course, leads to the establishment of the United States and our Constitution based on English principles that we had taken from them, right? So this is a big deal. The Protestant Reformation might have been stopped. We still would have one faith dominating the next few centuries. So this is one of these major turning point battles, all right? It's a big deal. It's like D-Day in World War II or, something like that, all right? So it's important. So finally in 1609, about 20 years down the road, things take a long time in the century. They finally have a truce between the Dutch and the Spanish that recognize the independence of the Netherlands. But even that won't be fully confirmed until the end of the next religious war, which is the 30 Years' War. And then finally it's all going to get settled. But in the meantime, this is a big deal. The Spanish Armada goes down. Look at this ship here, cracked and smashed, and the Spanish fleet goes down in one of the most notorious battles in history. The Dutch stay Protestant. The Dutch are free. They win their War of Independence. Spain goes away and England gets stronger. There you go. That's enough for today.